Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry. You know, monsoon season is gone, long gone, but we still get weather in the desert of northern Arizona, and in fact the desert of southern Arizona. A lot of folks get really confused and think that the monsoons are over, so we shouldn't have wind. Well, guess what? In the 17 years we've lived here, we've had wind all year long. In fact, it's kicking up right now. Oh, and we get rain too. When we first moved here 18 years ago, we'd have rain in October and sometimes into November. And you know, we had a big snow when we returned from an event that we did in Southern California, the beginning of October, actually kind of the middle of October. So you can never tell. Weather does what weather does. Well, I'm here today. I'm going to be laying out some parts for the diesel heater that I'm installing in the greenhouse. I like to start by having all of the parts laid out, if I can do that. Well, fortunately, this is a small enough set of parts that I can lay it out here on the back of the box truck. So I'll go ahead and lay them out here on the lift gate, and we'll talk about them. This diesel heater came in a small package. It's not very big. The business end of the heater is right here. This holds the brains of the unit. There's a spark plug or an ignition plug up here. Air comes in, air goes out. This is intake air and makeup air. And then there's the exhaust. I'm just going to lay these pieces out so you can see how it all goes together. And the instructions that came with this unit said there were 2 outlets on the heater. There are actually 4. Well, this is the part that most people think about, but there's something else. This right here, this contains the diesel that will be going into the heater. It's a 10-liter container. Now, right next to that container, you'll see a saw. I'll be making some changes to a piece of wood to hold this unit. There's the exhaust that connects to this pipe. The instructions don't talk about this, but I suspect this is an inlet filter. It is. And that's to keep things from getting into the inlet. Well, how do you get diesel oil or diesel fuel from this tank right here to the heater? You use this little pump. This is an electric oil pump. It's for pumping diesel fuel. It's connected up with this hose. So I'm not going to unroll this hose right now, but what happens is there's a hose that goes into the bottom of this tank. That has to be installed. The diesel is pumped out of this tank through this pump. From the pump to this inlet right here on the heater. This is a very small hose. That's fine, it doesn't require a lot of fuel to run this heater. But there are some unique things that we need to talk about. And the first thing that we need to talk about is wiring harnesses. And what's a wiring harness? Well, it's simply a pre-made series of connections and wires that are specifically designed to connect a piece of equipment together. Now, you have wiring harnesses in your car, you have wiring harnesses probably in your house, in your hot water heater, or anything that has a computer brain. Now, this has a computer brain. There are 12-volt DC hookups that goes to a battery or something like that. The wind's blowing some more. And then there are connectors that connect to the various pieces of the heater. One goes to DC voltage, one goes to the brains. On the other end of the brains, we have another piece of equipment right here. This snaps together. I'm not going to snap it all the way in because I want to make sure I can remove it easily if I need to. But it snaps right in here, and that makes the connection from this controller. The controller allows you to program when the heater is allowed to run, that is, what time of the day, the temperature that you want it to run, and a bunch of other features that this controller gives you access to. That's really nice. The problem though, and I have to warn you, is if one of these units fails, you may have all kinds of trouble getting replacement parts. I didn't pay much for this unit to start with. I paid $129 shipped to me here in northern Arizona, so that was a good price. But if it's not working, it doesn't do me any real good. But my theory is if it works for the first 30 days, generally speaking, electronics will continue to work for a much longer period of time. That's based on reliability theory, and it's called a bathtub curve. The idea is at the very beginning of the life of an electronic product, you'll have what's called infant mortality, the early failure of the device. Well, if it lasts 30 days, it's probably going to last 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. But at the end of life, depending on how the thing has been designed, you're going to see an increase in the failure rate. At some point, all the units will be failing. So that's just something to keep in mind when you adopt this kind of product on your homestead. Now let's talk about the most important aspect of this installation. This plate is intended to provide a flat surface or reinforcing in an automotive vehicle, a truck, a camper, a van, a car, a tractor, whatever you're going to install this in. The problem is, I don't want to install this unit permanently in one spot. I'm not sure where we want to have it in terms of the best use of our heat. We have a propane heater at the other end of the greenhouse that's working just great. I want to use this for some lower cost fuel, and that will be the subject of an upcoming show. You won't want to miss that. It may not be conventional, but I think it's going to work. I have a piece of plywood. I'm going to trace the holes that need to be cut out in that plywood. I just need to make sure that I leave enough plywood around the outside so that this unit can bolt to the plywood. This heater needs to be mounted, and the idea is you're supposed to be mounting it on a flat surface of a motor vehicle. Our greenhouse is not exactly a motor vehicle. So I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to use this as a mounting template. By mounting the heater to this template, I'll be able to mount the template onto a piece of plywood that I'll temporarily attach to the greenhouse. The idea is I'll use a bracket, a shelf bracket, to hold this unit in place. It doesn't weigh a lot, but it weighs enough that I want to make sure that it's well supported. I have a piece of plywood. This is weatherproof plywood. It's approved for contact with the ground. I'm using this specifically because it does get wet in the greenhouse, and I want to make sure that this base doesn't come apart. Well, I'm not sure where I'm going to mount it in the greenhouse, But there are some obstructions I need to be concerned about. One is there's some 2x4s on the inside of the greenhouse that are part of the structure that holds the doors. I'm going to see if I can give a full 4-inch allowance for that with this bracket. I sure can, that's not a problem. There's probably at least a couple more inches. Now what I want to do is make sure that I have these holes lined up with the heater. And the reason being is these have to go in a specific order. Now that direction will also work. I'm going to go ahead and mark this board using this as a template so that I know where I need to cut. What I'm going to be doing is cutting the center of this plywood out. So I'll mark the 4 corners. All right, now the question is, how much do I need to leave for access to the inlet and outlet? That looks like it's going to be enough there. I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not really measuring it all that closely. But let's just check to see where we are. 2 5/8 from the edge. Now at 2 5/8 from the edge. I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Now this Sharpie is not going to go away while I'm making these cuts. It's going to just take a little while. And I'll measure again, just because. That's just shy of 3 inches, and that's just shy of 3 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark that as well. Now I have 2 sides marked, but I have 2 more sides to be concerned about. Again, I want to leave enough wood for this plate to mount on. I definitely need to have the 4 holes available. The question is, do I need to have any more support along this edge? And I don't think I need to. I now have a template. Well, not really a template, I just have some markings where I'm going to be cutting out the plywood. Everything in here will be removed. Everything out here will be left. Everything looks like it's going to work out just fine. That does it for today. Tomorrow I'll be cutting out this shelf, making the bracket for it, mounting the heater onto this plate, and figuring out where exactly this is going to go in the greenhouse, because I'll need to drill a couple holes in the side. Thanks for watching. I hope this provides you with a little more information about how I'm going about doing this heater installation. It's pretty simple. It's not terribly complex, but you have to think things through. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, because we're going to be doing a lot more. Don't forget to brainstorm.